Okay, so I've gotten creative and I'm going to take advantage of LA traffic and answer your question, Mina. Why not? This is a video world. Let's answer your question. And Mina's question today was, can you tell me more about seller financing? Now, seller financing really is a very fascinating and interesting way to buy property and or sell property. Owner financing, and it's also known as seller financing, is a transaction in which the seller of a property agrees to take all or part of the purchase price in regular intervals or over a period of time. And what that means basically is that there's no bank involved. That's the most significant part of seller financing. It's between the seller and the buyer. So absolutely no bank qualifications involved, absolutely no qualifying involved with respect to how a bank operates. Now, generally what that means is that a seller is a little more accepting of the little blemishes on a credit report or past history. And there's more of a one-to-one relationship on agreeing whether somebody qualifies to buy a house or not. People use the same guidelines as a bank to get started, but the thing that makes seller financing so successful for buyers is that there may be that cutoff point at the bank where you just can't go any further. And it may be just a little bit. Maybe in terms of your loan-to-value situation, the bank's requiring that you have at least 45%, and maybe you only have 43%, and you can't get the loan. So with seller financing, it's just as significant and legal as a regular sale. However, the banks aren't involved, which makes it really attractive for buyers. Now, here are some of the advantages for buyers. Buyers, again, as I say, as far as qualifying goes, have a little more leeway in negotiating whether they have the ability to buy the house or not. You can tailor the financing. In other words, the financing itself is negotiable. So, for example, a seller may want a little higher interest rate because you're not putting as much down, and if that's acceptable to you, then you're both happy. There's down payment flexibility. There's not a set amount of down payment that you must put down, as for example, where normally a bank might ask for 20%. Well, what if you sincerely can only come up with 18%? Does that mean you shouldn't be able to buy the house? Probably not. And there again is where a seller is going to be a lot more flexible. There's also, and this is probably the most significant thing, there's also a lower cost in terms of the closing. Now, if you're not going to the bank to get a loan, guess what? You're not paying for the loan. And minimally, loans cost anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 on upwards to $20,000, depending on the purchase. So not only are you saving on the actual purchase of the loan, but you're also saving on all those garbage fees as well. You know, those little garbage fees that you see the end, $150 for the stenographer, and $150 for the application fee, and $500 for a process fee. All those kind of fees are out the window when it comes to owner financing. There's also faster possession, since we don't have to wait for a bank and get a bank's approval and go back and forth with respect to, did you make every qualification, did you sign all the stuff in the right place, all the legalities involved in that. The actual process of escrow usually tends to go a lot faster. It's a lot more clear. Now, what are some of the benefits for a seller? Well, a seller, given the fact that you now are purchasing a home that under normal circumstances you couldn't follow, probably can ask for his list price. So the seller may get more of a fair market value in consideration of the fact that this is an opportunity that you have that you probably wouldn't be able, the buyer has, that the buyer wouldn't normally have. But again, that's all negotiable. Maybe the buyer, for whatever reason, feels uncomfortable with the list price, and that's up to them to negotiate. One of the most attractive aspects of seller financing for a seller, and probably the reason that they do it most often, is they can avoid capital gains tax to the degree that they would with a normal sale. And the reason for that is the sellers don't actually take possession of all the money. Obviously, they're being paid over a certain period of time. So what they can do on a yearly basis is claim the tax on exactly the money that they get for that particular year. Now, capital gains tax when you sell a house can be very significant. You can pay tens of thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes if in fact you had too much equity in your house when you sold your house. So this is really probably the primary motivator for most sellers not to go with a conventional loan. When you set up an owner financing situation, the owner, or the prior owner at that point, because now you become the owner of the property, starts to receive, that is the seller, starts to receive a monthly income. And generally that monthly income, which is probably at a rate that's comparable to whatever the going rate for lending is usually a much better than any kind of a market money account or any kind of investment. They're guaranteed at least anywhere between, at this time in our history, probably around 5%. And that's 5% guaranteed for whatever amount of time they've agreed to have this house paid off. Another thing that sellers usually do with an owner finance situation is, to some degree, because you're a buyer, you're a little bit more of a risk because you weren't able to go conventional. So what I've seen generally is sellers asking for about 0.5% more than the normal rate. Now, another advantage for a buyer is that a seller could possibly offer you different types of loans. You can get an interest-only loan, you can get a fixed-rate amortization loan, you can get a less than interest-owned maybe for a certain period of time, and you can get a balloon payment type loan. Now, that's one I wouldn't suggest, but the point is that you have more flexibility in choosing the different kinds of loans. Remember, it's a wide open field at this point, and as long as the both of you agree on it, that's what would be in the contract. People that can take advantage of this are people that are newly divorced, people that have been in their job for, say, less than 2 years. That's always a very important thing for a bank. If you're not in your position for 2 years, they won't even look at you. Self-employed people, small business owners, people that need to move quicker than a bank will really react. Let's face it, banks are taking an awful lot of time to process loans, and sometimes people need to move a little faster. Newlyweds, people with existing debt situations where they can't buy. If you have gone through a foreclosure, there's a chance you can't get credit for almost 7 years. With people that have significant jobs and great income, is it fair for them to have to wait 7 years in order to buy property? That's not necessarily fair as far as I'm concerned. That's just my opinion. And people with debt that they're about to pay off maybe in a year or a year and a half or even 6 months. And they know that they're going to be in a position to do that. So why should they have to wait? Now, one last thing also that some of you may be asking is this a safe alternative? And the answer is absolutely. A seller finance transaction is absolutely no different than a regular transaction in terms of the purchase agreement, the disclosures, the liabilities on both sides. There's a regular escrow period. There's title searches. It's exactly the same transaction as a conventional sale. The only difference is that a bank is not involved. That's the strict difference. But when two people can cooperate and two realtors know what they're doing in terms of being able to process just like they do in a regular sale, it's a great alternative. Well, I'd like to thank you for taking this ride with me on my video conferencing. This was really kind of fun. Now, it took a lot of time to put together, about 6 hours if you want to know the truth, for this probably 2 to 3 minute spot. But it was interesting, and we're going to get it down even better next time. So, once again, thanks for joining me on the road, and if you have any questions, please put them on our wall, and I'll be happy to answer them. We'll be happy to get back to you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.